So this is Bhagavan Nityananda. Now Bhagavan Nityananda, needless to say, in that exalted state of great detachment and great inner peace, wasn't a conventional person. Because he wasn't operating to any drumbeat but his own. He didn't give programs, he didn't give formal talks or anything like that. But fortunately we have some of his aphorisms and his longer statements that were written down by a devotee named Tulsiyama back in the 20s when he was in South India. And that's about all we have of his teachings. So these are from those teachings which are called, has been named the Chittakash Gita, which means the song of higher consciousness. So it's very easy for me to hear them as coming from a place beyond the mind, channeled from some deep source of spirituality. So here are some of his remarks. First one, destruction of the world means transforming it into consciousness. Raja Yoga is the place of indivisible monism. Now, Baba used to call his yoga Siddha Yoga. But Bhagavan Nityananda used to call his yoga Raja Yoga. And we call this yoga Shiva Yoga. It's all the same yoga. It's a yoga based on the universal consciousness, on the awakening of the Kundalini energy, and of knowing the self. So he's saying Raja Yoga is the place of indivisible monism. If you enter the one, you lose sight of the many. So the goal is unitive vision, to see everything as emanating from the one. Wherever there's dualism, we have difficulty. We have sorrow, we have desire. But if you see everything as that one, if you get to that exalted state, then you reach the place of indivisible monism. Not the kind of monism of moaning, oh, not that kind of monism, but where there's only one consciousness. Here's another one. The fruit is according to the internal faith of a person. In other words, it's a very profound statement. Our life is joyous or miserable according to our interior state, not according to circumstances that we have, which we always blame. It's to the way we hold things within ourselves. No matter what circumstances we have, that life can be blissful. I often think that Jesus' sacrifice on the cross was to demonstrate that, it couldn't have a more horrible event happen to you. Can you imagine? It's worse than having a hangnail. So, it's bad. But he maintained his state of consciousness, even in those horrible circumstances. So he says, the fruit is according to the internal faith of a man. Good and evil are not of the self. Good and evil are in a lower realm than the self. The self is beyond good and evil. The self, like the reflection of an object, takes that form which the mind wants him to take. The jiva, that's the individual, is like a bird in a cage. So each of us is like a bird in a cage of flesh. It's trapped in this cage. When the nest is spoiled, the bird is not affected. So we're beyond the body. We're not affected by the body. The bird flies away. The bird may build a new nest and enter it in 6 months, in a year, or in 5 minutes. The bird that's flown away can re-enter a new nest in a few days or so on. It says it depends on the bird's efforts. From this place to the railway station, you can go in 24 minutes or in a month. So you say it's up to the bird how quickly you get reincarnated. You want to be reincarnated quickly? Or do you want to have a pause between 2 drafts? Why don't we all get reincarnated together? We can do this again. What?
We did.
Oh, we did. and this is it. And this is it. Cool. Very clever. Okay, that's one. Now another one. Bhagavan says, in Raja Yoga, remember that's the yoga that he gives, there are no holy works to perform. There are no rituals. There is no holiness in a particular spot or place. So obviously his Raja Yoga is so profoundly non-dual, seeing consciousness everywhere, that there are no practices, there are no places of pilgrimage, because where can you go except to be in the self? So it's the non-dual Vedantic kind of point of view he's giving. But he does have a method. Spiritual discipline consists of regulating the breath through the chakras. So it's Kundalini Yoga. Respect and love offered from the highest chakra reach the entire universe. So you know the journey of the Kundalini energy from the lowest chakra to the highest. When we reach the highest and then we give respect and love, it becomes very powerful. When we come from a lower chakra, it's not as powerful. But if we work on ourselves and develop, then there's great strength in what we have to give. He says, creation is nothing but energy being released or projected from God. Creation being this, being everything that we see. And he's saying it's only projected from God. This whole world is a projection from the divine or from consciousness. Entering back into it is disillusion. There are these two movements in the universe, creation and dissolution. And dissolution is the withdrawing of the universe back. And God says, well, it was a little weird. Trump became president. I think I should erase it and bring it back in. And that'll happen. Identification with the body is the cause of creation as one sees it. It's interesting, he says that for us, our own ignorance creates duality. Identification with the body. The real dissolution takes place when the individual self merges and dissolves in the universal. When Jiva becomes Brahman, when the individual soul discovers, see, the teaching is that we think we are this person, this limited individual, but in fact we are not. We are universal consciousness. We are Shiva, however you want to talk about that. And as we practice, we become more and more aware of this higher aspect of our nature, and we dissolve in that place. While remaining individuals, we still dissolve in universal consciousness. Okay, a couple more. And you know, one of the charming things about Bhagavan Nityananda is that he spoke to, you know, the local villages. He didn't speak at universities, and he used humble metaphors from village life. So here we go. As air is pumped into a bicycle tire, so the nadis are filled by thoughts on Vedanta. So what he's saying, it's really a strange mind he has. We pump air into the bicycle, and the nadis are the subtle channels. And we can fill those subtle channels with higher thoughts. When we actually think, I am the self, I am Brahman, I am Shiva, these are the higher thoughts, it's like pumping air into the bicycle tire. It creates great intensity and energy within our inner system. And if you think low thoughts like I'm worthless, I hate so-and-so, I hate myself, I feel very sorry for myself, those thoughts shrink the inner apparatus. But the higher thoughts like I am the self expand our inner being. He says, first the nadis must be cleansed, then the prana is drawn up, step by step, to the Brahmarandra in the center of the brain.